I'm talking about Manipur. A year after violent clashes erupted in Manipur on May 3rd, the state has not come back to a normal routine. It's 1 year of Manipur violence. Tensions persist in Manipur despite recent decrease in large-scale conflict. Clashes between Meiteis and Kuki continue to challenge Biren Singh's claim of Manipur becoming a normal state. Manipur has done well to control poppy cultivation, but the inter-community relations have not improved. More than 200 lives have been lost, over 60,000 people displaced, and numerous cases of sexual violence against women have been reported. Last week, 2 CRPF personnel were killed in a deadly gun battle, a first in Manipur. Thousands of firearms and rounds of ammunition remain accounted for, posing a big threat. Security personnel note that much of the ongoing gun violence is carried out by locals using stolen weapons. So my discussion on Manipur, this special edition, is divided into 4 parts. It's very clear. The 4 parts are, the first part we are going to talk about the people who have been displaced. Then we are going to talk about Armbai Tangal and Merapaibis. Then we are going to talk about the issue of 6th schedule. And then we are going to talk about drug smuggling. But right now, the thing which has happened peacefully is polling. But even during polling, there were reported incidents of firing, booth capturing and destruction of EVMs. And despite all attempts at reconciliation, internal division and complex issues remain. And over a period of hour, we will discuss them. So I am joined by Hijang Misao, social activist, Rami Niranjan Desai, author and scholar, Northeast region. I am also joined by Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights, Risk and Analysis, and General Ashwani Sivach. And let me straight away first go to Rami. Rami, in this first edition, which is divided into 4 parts, we are going to talk about reconciliation and the people who have been displaced. Has the reconciliation happened in a year or not?
Good evening, Karthikeya. You've posed a tough question right at the outset, as we all reflect back on the last 1 year and what we've seen, what Manipur has had to go through, at this point, I think, the mood is somber, when we think about how prolonged this exercise became, this conflict became. There isn't really there isn't really a balancing factor any longer. But, Karthikeya, I have to tell you, reconciliation is a difficult process, It's not a process that can't happen. We've seen the rates of incidents come down. We have seen some amount of relative peace, even if it's in, certain spurts. There's always been little spurts of violence, little spurts of incidents, that always try to derail the peace process. One also wonders who are these vested parties that are interested in keeping this sort of conflict alive. Or secondly, is the fact that it's taken on a life of its own, wherein the kind of advantages that have permeated into groups that are anti-national, anti-community. It's almost for them become a way to manipulate this situation, to to be able to take out the most out of this situation for their own personal vested interests. Now, if you were to ask me of reconciliation, and really, if we were to look at it rationally at this point, we have to be able to dream a little bit, We can't constantly, be a part of that cycle where, we think it's never going to happen, even though that, it seems like a daunting process.
Okay.
I think, Karthikeya, it is incumbent on, our young people, our educated people, people from both the communities. I have spoken to people from both the communities who are extremely rational, extremely tired of this conflict and wanted to end, And I think, it's time where people let bygones be bygones. I'm not saying that accountability should not be asked for. There is a time, there is a place for that.
Point taken, Point taken, Rami. There are 3 more guests. Mr. Misao, you have been you were in Delhi. You were part of the protest that has taken place. What is the sense of reconciliation from the perspective of the Kuki community, the people who have been displaced? And I just request you, let's keep it to these 4 topics, The word is reconciliation.
Thank you, Kartikeya. Today, I'm quite privileged to be part of this protest held in the heart of the capital city. And what I strongly said was like, who doesn't want peace? There's nobody, especially in Manipur, who doesn't want peace. But peace without any kind of justice, peace without justice is something which we will never accept. So we are making slogans, shouting, saying, we want justice. There are numbers of families who are displaced, whose livelihood are totally destroyed, the lands they have left, and there are hundreds of lives taken. And if these laws, if you don't compensate, if you're not giving justice to that loss, I don't think reconciliation is a far-fetched cry, and that might not happen, because we want, as Rami was saying, everybody is tired. I'm also tired. Children are tired. Young people are tired. Aged parents are tired. Who wants all this violence? Who wants all this killing? But if something has to end, there should be a logical conclusion. Without any logical conclusion, you cannot even dream or think of reconciliation or the so-called peace. So without any reconciliation, there cannot be peace. And without any justice, there cannot be reconciliation. That's what I strongly put up today in the protest.
So the key word is justice. Justice is required for reconciliation. Mr. Chakma?
Well, I think at certain stage, reconciliation has to come. I mean, Manipur is not the exception. I think everywhere when the conflicts take place, it's natural that it takes its own time for the people to come to the terms. And of course, a number of elements do come out, stretching, or paving the ways, or issuing or giving some indications how the process should be going forward. I think we have to understand how radicalization takes place. Radicalization takes place in a situation where you are absolutely dispossessed. And that's what is usually used by all the groups, for all the communities, all the religions. And in this particular context, I think the key element is the rehabilitation of the people who have been displaced. But the sad part of it is, for the last 1 year, about 10 to 15,000 people have been displaced from Manipur. They have settled in or sought shelter in Mizoram. And the Union of India has refused to provide any kind of financial assistance. And actually, we had gone to the National Human Rights Commission. The National Human Rights Commission has been considering this as to why these citizens of this country who have taken shelter in Mizoram cannot be given some kind of assistance just to maintain or meet their bare necessities. So when the state's policy itself is dictated by the politics, whether it's majority or minority appeasement, I think you lose the side of, or you lose the credibility to be an impartial actor. See, state at the end of the day, whether it's the state government or the Union of India, they have to be seen to be independent and impartial. And how do you show that impartiality? Obviously, treating each and every citizen equally, at least for access to the basic minimum humanitarian assistance. And that is not taking place. And I think this shows that the government of the day is not, in a way, has decided how to resolve these issues, except, let the situation go on. People will get tired. So the approach of the government of India at this point of time is basically just wait and watch. People will get tired, they will resolve it, rather than the state taking any initiative.
Okay. General Sivaj, why has reconciliation not taken place despite political process in motion? Elections have taken place. I don't think massive violence took place in Manipur. Both the phases were smooth. But then why reconciliation has not taken place? It's 1 year, 365 days.
Yeah, Kartika, three reasons. One is that mistrust and distrust between Meiteis and Kuki still exist. Though both sides have come up some way and some reconciliation has taken place, but there is a long way to go. But more than anything else, what has happened is that the disturbance which is occurring in Myanmar has also impacted the peace in Manipur. And the simple as that is the number of weapons, drugs which have flowed from Myanmar to Manipur when this violence started from 3rd May has created more problem for Manipur. And as on today, there are two things which are there, which is a main reason of sort of reconciliation not taking place, is the number of weapons which are still at large. There are about 10,000 weapons which are missing from the police armory. They are still available with the both sides. They are available with the militant group, and also number of weapons which has come from Myanmar, and also the drugs. So these two are reason as making the situation still volatile. Though there is a buffer zone which has been formed in between the area which is dominated by Meiteis and Kuki, but at time the violence do take place. But I certainly feel in a long way, how do we handle this situation? I still feel that the two basic issue which the present government is trying to resolve may not have a direct impact immediately, but in a long term will have. That is a boundary wall or a fence between Myanmar and also all these bordering states, starting from Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. And second is a termination of this free movement regime, because the point is if you can go on the either side by 16 kilometers, it also allows the militants to move freely with weapons, and that has become a main cause of violence.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
suppose if we take action on this, the violence will reduce in future. But as on today, reconciliation has taken place, but it is still long way to go.
Okay, I've divided this conversation into 4 parts. Misanga, I'll come to you. So total 50-minute, 55-minute conversation. The first part is reconciliation. So the word justice came, the border came, the difficulty of the process came, as Rami said. The second part of the conversation is, which is very close to me, is this emergence of civil society activists taking extreme position and polarizing the society. It happens in systems where the sovereignty of the state gets challenged, because ultimately the sovereignty of the state can never be challenged in any liberal democracy. But in Manipur, CSO seems to be challenging it. Arambai Tangol, a hardline Meitei organization formed in 2020, assumed prominence during current crisis in Manipur. Named after ancient Meitei war strategy signifying spear wielders, it has surged in prominence in public narrative. That is one part of it, and the accusation by Kuki groups that they are the vigilantes. And based in Imphal Valley, having a cadre, enjoying popularity, and lending arm to hardline Meitei sentiments. And recent summoning of the 30 Meitei MLAs on January 24th stirred a lot of people's attention. The Kangra fort, it happened. The second part, which is visible to you, is on the screen. They are the Meiteis, also known as the Mothers of Manipur. Established in 1977, the group comprises Meitei women from diverse backgrounds, often referred to as the torchbearers due to the sort of work they have done against civic life, in civic life, or for example, in terms of controlling alcohol and other things. They command respect. But then it has created a lot of polarization. They have come into picture whereby they have stopped Indian Army from doing the job. But they were the one who were at the forefront of the Iron Sharmila protest against AFPA. That is one part of it. The other part of it is the Kuki organizations who have taken a completely hardline stand on certain issues. So, Misao, to you, are the CSOs real troublemakers in Manipur? Misao.
That's a good question, Kartike. The question like reconciliation, I think, as I was saying, it's a far-fetched cry because Manipur, what is happening in Manipur is if it is purely a conflict between the Meiteis and the Kukis, I think the state government can come in and initiate reconciliation process. Now, the whole complexity of Manipur is who is going to initiate this peace process or reconciliation process, because it has been proven beyond doubt the state's complicity, where all the systems are used against the Kuki community. Now, even as you were rightly pointing out, the CSO are now dictating terms on the government, which is very unsavory incidents that is happening in Manipur. Now, the Arambai Tengal has taken over the governance and they are running the government. And in such kind of situation, when the elected government, when the democratic government is not functioning and the entire systems is being taken over by all these extremist groups, the radical Meitei militia, who has the tacit support of the so-called Meiteis, who were once respected, who were once honored because of the cause they stand up for. Today, this there's a whole range of whole system connivance. The extremist group, the radical, the CSOs, the Meiteis, and the government, the whole systems, the whole, uh, the whole of Manipur is conspiring against this particular community. And what option do you have? For us, especially for the cookies, what option do we have? We don't have any option but to defend ourselves. There's no instance where cookies are also taking offensive role. Now, we've been so happy after a hiatus. After some hiatus, we believe peace will limp back in Manipur. And you have seen just recently how they have attacked us. They kill our village volunteer, cut the body into pieces, even the neck was cut, and how they cook that whole pieces and then make mockery of that. And you have seen what's happening in
I really don't
Setmai,
want to
where
get into the
the
hill states.
entire
I
state
wanted the
machinery
point
was
on the
used.
CSOs. Fair enough. See, Ejang, fair enough. You made a point. But Rami, the other issue is that the CSOs are not community specific. They're not community agnostic. CSOs are spread over other communities as well. It's the generic term I use.
Absolutely, Karthikeya. We have to stop now dividing organizations on the basis of communities, because I think there has been a lack of responsibility across lines. We've said this right at the outset as well, that, where were the CSOs calling for some sort of unified consensus? Meiteis also, when we mentioned them, to blanket Judge Meiteis would be a completely false way of looking at things, because even within them there are sections. Some sections may be more politically driven. Some sections are, I was there at the peak of the conflict, and some sections were totally unpolitical, who were sleeping outside their homes in the cold, just so that they could be the buffer zone between any sort of conflict or any sort of attack that came or befell on their homes. So some of the causes are very noble, some of the causes are not. And this is across the CSOs, because they command a lot of power, they command a lot of loyalty, they command, and it gets exasperated by this human tendency to want more and more loyalty. It's like a high. Now, what I want to say is, Karthikeya, that there are enough young people, and I've spoken to them, and people are tired, they want normalcy. There was a time that they could go to the hills and have picnics, and people from the hills could come to Imphal. How is it possible that we can't even get 50 people together, 50 young men and women from both the sides, who meet across, even if, I don't like to call it the buffer zone, but whatever it is, meet at that point and just say, look, a just even as a token that we want to take this step towards some level of reconciliation, shake hands and give a hug and say, let this be a starting point. We're not going to agree on everything, but at least we can stand in front of each other, and we can influence people. So I think the point of hate is over, the point of aggression is over, and anybody who takes this step, history will remember them very kindly. And I really hope that something simple as this can become into something bigger. I wish this is 1 year of the Manipur conflict. I wish next year we are not talking about it, we're talking about how Manipur became an example of bringing peace back into a really fragmented society.
Mr. Chakma, I know you have been part of multiple programs I have done, and multiple times I have asked this question. But there is also one thing which I have seen. I have realized that most of the mainstream politicians have not pushed these CSOs enough, a section of these hardline CSOs enough. They have won their seats, but they haven't done their social duty enough. I don't know. I don't know that. Is it because it's really dangerous even today to do that social act?
Well, I think, we have to, at the end of the day, understand a couple of elements into it. The first element is, if we call it civil society, I think it's a real an abuse of the word. They are not civil society. They are uncivil society. They are vigilante groups. They are basically a reflection of the failure of the state. Where the edifice of the state structure doesn't exist, then you will have these civil society organizations, uncivil society organizations, or communal organizations coming up and playing the role of the protector, vigilante, whatsoever you call it. And because the state doesn't exist, it cannot provide the space to the mainstream political leaders, and that's why they are not taking any initiative. The fact that both sides, I'm not talking about one particular side, that this kind of community organization, which we should not necessarily call civil society organizations. Civil society organizations are, I think, they have a very narrow definition. We talk about the non-governmental organizations, etc. These are community-based organizations which can turn into communal organizations. And they exist and they become so powerful because the state doesn't exist. State fails to deliver its responsibility, then some people have to come in and play the role or replace or supplant the state itself. When the state doesn't exist, obviously the people who run the state, whether it's from the ruling political parties or the opposition political parties, they do not enjoy that particular space because somebody else has taken over it. So that's why they cannot play this protective role. You cannot approach a communal conflict with thousands of arms floating around, with a tree-hugging approach. It's a law and order issue. Ultimately, we have to realize whether non-state entities can take over the functions of the state. The moment the non-state entities, take over the function of the states, whether it's the Arambai Tengal on the side of the Meiteis or the Kuki insurgent groups on the side of the Kukis, when they dictate the entire community how they should be approaching, we have to remember one thing, that the state doesn't exist. So when the state doesn't exist, obviously the space for genuine civil society organizations,
Okay.
the political leaders, it doesn't exist. I have friends who had to flee. They have been living
I just want to
outside
make one
Manipur
thing,
for a long
sorry
time.
I'm stopping you. I just want to make one thing very clear to all our viewers. We have created a collage. By purpose, I have not put out those videos because videos create different emotions. But I have created a collage to tell you that this is what has happened over a year. We have taken special care to still these visuals. We have not played a single video. It is like reminiscing what has happened.